Welcome back to the Garden Hutch. Today we're going to discuss some mistakes, successes, and a few surprises we've had so far this year in the garden. Let's get going. So a couple weeks back, we did a Garden Wars video, and we had a lot of fun doing that, and it seemed like you folks sort of enjoyed it. So we thought we'd sort of do a continuation on that theme this week. So today what I wanted to do is discuss some of the survivors from the pest attacks that we've had. We also wanted to discuss a few casualties we've had in the last week or so. Also, we've surprisingly had some volunteers show up here on the homestead. So let's go take a look at what we're talking about. So the first survivor I wanted to talk about today were our potatoes. Now we did have some early varieties, our Yukon Golds and the purple potatoes. Here in 7B, they come out a lot earlier than the other potatoes. I'll put a link up above. We dug some last week. It was awesome. We got a whole bunch of them. But anyway, for the purpose of this video, let's take a look at how our potato plants have bounced back. We had a bunch of those deadgum potato beetles on them. We treated it with DE, and as you can see, they have bounced back really well. These bed down here, those are the ones that got bit originally, and even then, if you come out here, you can see that the stalks themselves are still doing really well. So we were happy with the way that went. We didn't have to do any sort of heavy chemical or anything. We really wanted potatoes this year, but when we can stick with organic options, we want to. So anyway, I wanted to show you all how this did. Now let's go take a look at the kale. And the next survivor is the kale. Look how awesome that kale looks now. Last time we saw it, it had literal worms hanging off of it. It was super gross. We had to take a lot of the leaves off that were bitten through and stuff. But as you can see, it is bouncing back and looking beautiful. You get in here on these new leaves. Those things are fantastic in a salad. So we just started eating the kale again. You know, we like to give it, I don't know, week, 10 days to recover from an outbreak like that. It is important to note, if you have kale and you live, in the southern part of the country, spray your kale for brassica worms every, couple days. If you have, if it rains or something like that, make sure you treat them relatively soon afterwards. Hopefully we can make it through the summer. I'll be really happy, if I'm being honest, if I can keep these alive until August. Well, we started off with the win for 2023, but let's take a look at one of our L's that we've had so far. Let me preface this by saying I didn't do very well on my squash last year, so this year I wanted to sort of diversify the location for our summer squashes. That way I could have an idea of where they grow really well in the summertime. So what I did was, when I went through to design the beds, I would give the squash half of some of these beds just to see if they did better in one area or the other. Well, apparently we're also growing our squash on squash trees. And I did not do a very good job of planting the neighbors for the squash. So anyway, that's part of the L's, and we're gonna take a look at that. But before we go too much further, if you're enjoying the garden content that Leslie and I do, we'd really appreciate it if you do us a favor and hit that thumbs up button on the videos. It just kind of helps us get recommended to more folks. Also, if you have not, if you could hit the subscribe button, it goes a long way in helping us reach our goals. That little bell icon will let you know when we upload new videos. So anyway, with all that out of the way, let's go take a look at these L's. So I'm going to use this pepper bed as an example, but this is going on in 3 different beds. So kind of keep that in mind as we look at this. So this zucchini plant here is doing absolutely wonderful. You can see down here below, it's doing exactly what we want. We want it to grow up this steak. Heck, we even have a zucchini that I pollinated this morning. So that looks all great and good, right? Well, let's talk about the L involved in this. Now that we're growing these zucchinis up, they kind of cast their shade a little differently. And if we look right here below these leaves, we see that poor pepper plant right there. You can see it's kind of getting a little discolored, and compared to its neighbors, it is quite a bit shorter. So as I went through and I started looking at this, I realized that I'm an idiot, and I planted this pepper plant. You can see it's also having, it's kind of the same effect on this guy over here. So, okay, I realized, you know what, I didn't plan this out very well. So to make up for those two, I just kind of went through and I stuck in more banana peppers here in the center of these to kind of make 5 on each side of the zucchini trellis. But anyway, you know, as a content maker, I really love to show off my successes, but I want to be super transparent about all of the mistakes and stupid stuff I do in the garden, because I realize I like watching videos of people doing stupid stuff sometimes. So, speaking of doing stupid stuff, up here in our mild jalapeno bed, I came out and this guy right here in this bed, the top part of my plant was eaten off, and it was, you know, it was a nice healthy plant. I don't know, hopefully you can see that little nub down there. Anyway, and I was like, oh no, you know, blah, something happened to my plant. But luckily for me, I have plants in the greenhouse. So I ran in the greenhouse, came back out with another healthy plant. I stuck it in and I figured, you know what, no problem, I'm gonna get a win. And then I came back out, and as you can see, that plant had the top of it cut off. So I started looking around and I found a big fat worm that was currently eating on the top of my pepper plant. So again, I'm an idiot. So now I have to get another one of my mild jalapeno pepper plants and put it in here. You know, as they say, you live and you learn, and you live and you learn, and you live and you learn. So hopefully this time, you know, I've learned my lesson. So grand total in peppers that have been killed thus far, I believe I'm up to 8. I know that the ones under the zucchini plants and the squash plants, they're gonna die. The mistake I showed you with those 2, I did 2 in each one of the beds, and then I had 2 out here that were eaten by the same worm. I still can't believe that I did that. I mean, that is like such a rookie mistake. I just didn't even look around to just pick the worm up. The chickens loved it. All right, I gotta move on. So next, I wanted to say, kind of a surprise that we had a bunch of volunteers here on the homestead. It was really cool. We're still trying to figure out how they all got here. So we're just gonna run through these real quick and I'll show you what I'm talking about. And the first volunteer comes up right behind me. I was out watering Leslie's pollinators, and I looked up into the backside of the carrot plant, and there's a tomato growing. Not only is there a tomato growing, but it's got flowers on it, if you look right back there. So I guess we're not gonna have to wait too long to find out whenever or what kind of tomato this is. I have no idea how that tomato plant got in there. This bed is new. You know, we filled it with fresh compost and let it set. So anyway, that's the first volunteer, but you know, happy surprises, right? We'll stick here around the top garden though, and these are a little easier to explain. This ground cherry right there, it obviously fell off of its mother or whatever over the course of last year, but I'm not sure how it made it, but it did. So we're gonna see, you know, how it does. If it puts off ground cherries, we'll be excited. More than likely though, I'll end up walking on it when I'm not paying attention. This one down here is also really easy to explain. This was a radish bed, but when we went through to clear it, that guy wasn't there. So I guess the seed was just hanging out in here, needed to be stirred up a little bit. So we will be eating that radish really quick. And the last of our volunteers today is also a bit of an enigma. In this bed last year, we grew cayenne peppers. And then I was coming out to trim the other day and I saw that tomato right there. We did not put a tomato plant in there. You can see the other ones, they have a stake in them. And for whatever reason, I never really noticed that it was there until just like a couple weeks ago. So we just let it go. In fact, it also has blooms on it. So it shouldn't be too long until we learn what kind of tomato it is. But it's kind of funny that just out of a bed that had cayenne peppers in it last year, we have a random tomato show up. I must admit, I'm having a lot of fun doing these garden war videos. Let me know in the comments below what you think, if we should switch formats. As always, I appreciate everyone who came along with us today. Until next time, I hope you all take care of yourselves. Peace.